Originally from Chile, Ronaldo trained as an architect and developed his concerns for urban sociology, urban poverty, as well as social housing in countries of the Global South. He joined the DPU in 1974, where he set up and directed the first Masters in Urban Development Planning, and later established the MSc Degrees course in Housing and Development. Besides teaching, Ronaldo also undertook research, as well as training and consultancy in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. He remained a member of the academic staff for 25 years, till 1999.
When I came to the DPU, what I found in the DPU was when I returned in 1974, I found also a relationship with the staff of the DPU. Not all of them, because I didn't know all of them, but during the previous period, I have established already some relationships with Nigel Harris, for example. Nigel was the director of the actual course in the Center of Urban Studies. We were politically very close, but not exactly in the same box. Close enough to have enormous fights all the time, but fights that were, intellectual fights and intellectual discussions that were related to the work that I was doing, as a student in the analysis of cities, etc., etc. And that created an extremely strong relationship. But linked with that was the presence of Professor Kennisberger, that became the first director of the DPU, and I met him because he came to do some teaching in the Center of Urban Studies. He was working in the Architectural Association at the time, and he was a very impressive figure, a very fantastic character as a teacher, precisely as a teacher. And all that created also an atmosphere of, people that I like, and people with whom I could interact very easily, and with it was a familiar environment, if you like to put it in that way. What I found the DPU was that the DPU was completely different from most of the other institutions in all the universities. It was a self-financed entity within the university structure. Now, that situation, instead of creating tension, being self-financed and being obsessed with, with the expenses and all that, in fact created an atmosphere of internal solidarity, and internal responsibility. The people, the staff of the DPU, approach that with a sense of responsibility and with a sense of solidarity and support, mutual support, which in my view was extraordinarily interesting, was positive, was creative, it was a mutual, there was an element of generosity in all that, which it was impossible to see in other institutions in the university. The other important thing was that I found that the DPU provided me with a space for my themes, for my subjects. I was concerned with the analysis of the social analysis of national development, and also the social analysis of urban development. And I have a sort of focus on the increasingly more precise on the analysis of those two things, national development and urban development, under the premise of poverty alleviation. And then the DPU was precisely an institution concerned with those subjects. I mean, it was not just a technical institution. We were not learning here technical systems to control, the development of the cities and, the way in which the statistics operate on that, etc. We were looking at the social effects of that, and we were looking at the social ways of developing that. All that created, if you like, my attraction to the DPU. But there was finally a very important thing, was in us the Chilean situation. I came here in 1969. I was 3 years in England. It was in Sussex, in Essex University as well. I went back to Chile in 1971 in the middle of the socialist government of Salvador Allende. But in 61 to 73, Chile was at turmoil. I mean, it was a problem of the enormous pressure from the right-wing sectors of the population, particularly also the American interest in Chile, etc. 1973 we have the military coup, and the military coup became an extremely dangerous situation for people that were, particularly people that were involved on whatever movement that was progressive or it was politically, radical or associated to communities in shanty towns or all that. And at the university, people that was involved on that was under real danger. I came without any particular program. I have no any particular idea of what I was going to do. I came with my family, and in fact I went to stay in the house of Nigel until I could find something, where to do. Nigel said, okay, we are looking for some new stuff. He suggested me to apply. I applied. In 2 weeks I was accepted. 3 weeks after coming here, it is a marvelous situation. I was appointed by the DPU and I started 30 years of academic life in London, which is the most important part of my life, probably.
So, what were your greatest concerns when you started teaching, and how did these influence how you shaped a master's course in urban development planning?
It is a long period of experiences in which you develop, which combine my experience as a student, okay, which I had for the first time been, I study architecture. Architecture is a very creative type of discipline, but there was an interesting, an interesting thing. I mean, there is a sort of arrogance in the architectural students. One teacher took us in the first year to a shantytown, and it was a complete shock, which was linked and associated to the fact that I was very much politically active at the time. So what developed from that, for example, was that in all the years as a student, I was most of the time concerned with housing, okay? Most of the time concerned with social analysis, most of the time concerned with poverty. Most of my designs were different aspects concerning housing and concerning urban problems. So to some extent, the background of my ideas became on two main concerns, if you like. One concern was the fact that there were certain subjects that I thought were the subject that I was able to develop better than other things. That was one thing. That was the housing thing, the urban development, etc. But the other was the fact that those subjects have to be approached in a, if you like, not just in a sort of descriptive way. They have to be approached in the context of the theories that apply to that, the theories that try to explain that, okay, and the way in which those theories and the practice were associated. So in that line, I developed most of the, if you like, the concerns were practically those. It was the concern of that reality and the concern with the theories and histories and the theoretical part, the combination of both.
So what do you believe your contributions have been during your time at the DPU?
Yeah. There are general contributions, which I can talk about that, but there are precise contributions. When I came to the DPU didn't have master courses. And the first several years at the beginning, we have only postgraduate diploma courses. So one of my colleagues, Louis Wasserhofen, who then went to Greece, and I started pushing, for the DPU to design and to formulate master courses. And we designed the first master course on urban development planning. Then that allowed me to enter into a very, if you like, serious analysis, if you like, or understanding of what is involved in the creation of knowledge. The contribution were those two master courses, but not only that. I think that the most important contribution is not something which is very specific, is that I've been fully militant supporter of the philosophy of the DPU during all those years in which I worked here. I supported this, sort of internal relationship, the idea that we were working without if you like, without the motivation of being successful, of being awarded, some sort of prize, of being better paid. It might be stupid, if you like, to have not that ambition, but all those ambitions were in fact absent in the way as far as I could see, they were absent in the way in which the DPU was created. So my contribution was to be, in my view, a strong supporter of that particular approach. That spirit of the DPU, I think I was fully supported. It coincided with my political views, with my, if you like to put it in an ambitious way, values and philosophical view, and my practice in the DPU.
What would you say were the highlights of your career?
I don't have highlights. That is the main point. This is the easier. In my notes here is a few lines instead of having a few pages. I've been an extremely happy man in my work. I mean, I have had periods of furious, and being angry, but all the time I have had full satisfaction and feeling that I am doing a very interesting thing, maybe not for the rest of the world, but to me definitely yes. So I don't have I cannot point out to you, I think which I found. I published a book in which it was a big thing. No, I have published nearly 40 papers, but never I published a book. Okay, and my papers have been used by my students mostly, and sometimes they appear in books, but they are not. All of them are, to me, satisfy me, and I've been happy to look at that, etc., etc. The only part which I single out as a matter of great satisfaction, more than the standard one, is that I have had an extremely good relationship with my students. Okay, and this is something which I value more than anything else. The way in which I receive letters, I receive calls, I meet people, and they have this sort of friendly, really interesting relationship. This is the only thing that I value really strongly.
Thank you.